Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome in. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. This is Joey Murray, the Italian stallion, and I'm here with Russ, the idea guy, Morgan.
Joey, land is not something that I know a lot of. I do own some of it, but today we're with the Land Geek, and we're going to get plenty of insight.
He knows a ton about land. In fact, he's that guy, Mark Podolsky. He is the guy that has figured out how to make buying and selling land into a passive income stream. Who doesn't want to know about that?
Well, but this isn't like, I think land, I think I'm going to go buy out 1,000 acres. I'm going to start cutting timber and, having a Pine Street farm.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, we're talking like very blue collar, like 3-4 acre type properties and doing lots of volume in it, but at like 300% returns.
300 to 1,000%. This is nuts. And this is one of those things in the show we've shared before, passive income ideas that you have to be an accredited investor. Not the case with today's show.
Well, what is an accredited investor? Not everybody understands that terminology.
Okay, so to be an accredited investor, the IRS says you should be making $200,000 or more per year individually, or $300,000 or more as a married couple, or you have to have over $1 million in assets outside of your home.
Right. Well, and that means a lot of times those type of investments too, you have to come up with $100,000 as a minimum, where in this example, Mark starts sharing how he got into this with $3,000 as his starting point. Just, disclaimer here, every return, every example he gives in here is not to be meant that you can go do this and replicate it. But what I really appreciated about this interview, Joey, is the fact that he was in a job that he did not like. He was making good money, but did not like it. And he pursued passive income so that he could control his time and effort. And through his drive and willingness to learn all there was to know about it, now is coaching people. I think there's lots of lessons for you to hear.
Yeah, I mean, who do you know right now that may be driving to work in a dead-end job and they want a way out, but they just don't know where to start? This is an episode, along with our whole entire show, we're hoping to give you value that you want to share. The easiest way to do that, there's two ways. One, on your phone right now, hit share this episode with that person you're thinking about. Or two, engage us on Facebook. We have our Wealth Without Wall Street Facebook page where you can share this particular episode with all your friends or with one in particular. So we want to encourage you to engage us there. We love hearing from you. We want your feedback. But this is an opportunity to share a great idea with your friend who may be in a dead-end job.
Well, I think, too, it's just a great example of what a good and bad investor is. Because the Wall Street mindset tells us there's good and bad investments, but that's untrue.
Yeah. Ultimately, a good investor is the person who's close to the subject matter. They have knowledge. They've been educated. They've taken time. In fact, Mark even talks about in this interview how there is no truly passive income that you just put $1 in and you just walk away from. It takes a little bit of startup, but it can be passive at some point. So being, able to control the investment and have knowledge of it is really how you become that good investor.
Yeah, and the hope mentality that exists with Wall Street, if you know somebody right now that's putting money in Wall Street and you want to share how this podcast can help them, take today's interview with Mark. I believe that not only will you be inspired by the way that he left corporate America to pursue this dream, but also there may be this blue collar like land geek inside of you that you're like, hey, I'd like to participate in this. And I know that I've talked to several people about it since we've done this interview, and they are really interested in what he's doing. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview with Mark.
Mark, it is a privilege to have the Land Geek himself in our studio today at Wealth Without Wall Street. Thanks for being on.
Joey, Russ, thank you so much for having me. The honor, the privilege is all mine. Thank you.
Well, it's not every day you get to talk land with the Italian Stallion and the Idea Guy?
No, and I'm a little intimidated. Actually.
We can see. It seems like you're walking away from us.
Yeah. So the listeners can't see me, but I'm on a treadmill, on the treadmill desk right now, and I'm not judging Russ because he's sitting, and Joey because sitting is the new smoking. It's really a judgment-free podcast.
Yes.
But, I'll just say that I'm, probably going to live 10 years longer than both of you.
Well, again, that's the entrepreneur spirit, right? Is that you got to be on the move constantly, thinking on your feet. And that's clearly what you're going to be sharing today as we get into investing in land, which is your niche. And I know I'm really interested in hearing your story because you kind of alluded to it a little bit on your website. Kind of give us the background as to how did you fall into investing in land in such a unique way?
Sure. So I was a very miserable, overworked, overstressed investment banker specializing in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. So nothing too crazy, mid-market, 5 to 500 million in enterprise value. And I had a 45-minute commute to work and back. It was long hours. It was high stress. And it got so bad for me that I wouldn't get the Sunday blues, anticipating having to be back at work on Monday. I'd get the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that on the side, as a side hustle, he's going to these tax deed auctions. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar, and he's flipping them online, and he's making average return of 300%. And
Really?
I'm looking at companies all day long, and a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Great company. Average companies at 10%. And I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I don't believe him. I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I go to New Mexico with him. I do exactly what he says. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. I put them up online. 30 days later, they all sell at an average price of over $1,200 each. 300%, it worked. So I took all that money and I went to another auction where I live in Arizona, and this is in the year 2000. There's no one there. So, and there's no one in the room. And I'm buying up lots and acreage for nothing. And over the next 6 months, I sold all that property and I made over $90,000 cash. Wow. So I go to my wife. I say, honey, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be a full-time land investor. She's pregnant at the time.
Yeah, this had to go really well.
Yeah, that timing is impeccable.
It was impeccable. She's like, absolutely not. So I said, fine. So I worked land investing as a side hustle, and it took about 18 months before the land investing income exceeded the investment banking income, and then I quit. And I've been doing it full-time ever since 2001. I've done over 5,200 land transactions, and we did $100,000 last month. I mean, it's just a machine now, and
well, that's what I want to jump into. There is okay. Land investing sounds like a lot of work, but you've made it passive somehow, right? So, talk about that.
Okay, so essentially, what we do is we have a certain model, and the way that we do it is we look at. Well, okay, so let's just take you guys. You guys are in Alabama, right?
Right.
That's right.
All right. So I go to the treasurer in Texas, and I get a list of people that owe back taxes. And then what I do is I scrub that list, and I'll usually use it by, let's say, use code, a VL, vacant land, right? Now I've got all the landowners, right? And now, oh my gosh, I see Joey and Russ both owe $200 in back taxes on this 10-acre parcel in Texas, right? So you guys are advertising two things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to that raw land. You're in Alabama, the property is in Texas. And number two, you're distressed in some way, right? We don't pay for things we don't value. So I don't know what's going on with you guys, but for some reason you're not paying your taxes. The treasurer is sending you notices every quarter saying that if you don't pay your taxes, that it's going to be sold off to a tax deed investor or a tax lien investor. And eventually you're just going to lose your property and get nothing for it. So what I'll do is I'll look at the comparable sales for the last, say, 12 to 18 months. And let's say for our example, it's like $10,000. All I'm going to do is divide by 4. And that's going to get me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. And all I'm going to do is send you an actual offer of $2,500 for your 10-acre parcels. Now, in reality, 3 to 5% of people accept our quote-unquote top dollar offer of 25 cents on the dollar. So you guys accept it, right? You don't care about the property anymore. $2,500 is better than nothing. After that, we go through what we call due diligence or extensive research. Number 1, I want to make sure that you guys both own the property still. Number 2, I want to make sure that the back taxes are only $200. I don't want the back taxes killing my margin. Number 3, I want to make sure there's no property owners association fees. I want to make sure there's no code enforcement fees. I got to mow the lawn every month, something like that. Number 4, I want to make sure there's no breaks in the chain of title. Number 5, I want to make sure there's no liens or encumbrances. Number 6, I want to make sure that there's legal access, ingress and egress, that we can get to the property. I want to know the GPS corners. And while I'm doing all this, and I got a whole big property checklist, I'm creating my marketing package because my buyer is going to want to know all the information that I'm getting in due diligence. I'm getting the plat maps. I'm getting the GIS maps. I'm getting the aerial maps. I'm taking photos. I'm shooting videos. Now, how do I do this so it's not any of my time?
Yeah, that's the question. I'm sitting here. You're listing out a lot of things, and I've already started zoning out because my squirrel brain is like, oh, that seems way too many things for me.
Right. So
how does that become passive?
Right. So we have our trained VAs in the Philippines. They have access to an American title company, and they do all of this for me. It costs me $11 per property to conduct due diligence.
$11 per hour? Do you give them in?
No, $11 to do all that due diligence.
I've been telling the Stallion forever, we need to find people to do stuff for us for $11. And that's crazy. You're getting
yeah.
Yeah. Do those VAs have sisters or brothers we could call? Because
yeah, we have a VA program actually for our clients that actually use them, so they don't go to Upwork and train a VA. So basically, we go through our due diligence, everything checks out. Now I'm going to buy the property from you guys for $2,500. Now I'm going to sell this property in 30 days or less, and I'm going to make an average return of about 800 to 1,000% with owner financing. So what I'm going to do is I have a built-in best buyer for that property. Do you guys know who it is?
You.
No, I already bought it.
Oh,
I am the owner.
I don't know.
It's the neighbors. The neighbors. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, look, before I go to the open market, here's your opportunity. Protect your privacy, protect your views, expand your holdings. And oftentimes, the neighbors will buy it. And they'll buy it, let's say, for $2,500 as a down payment. And then I'm going to make it a car payment. Let's say $249 a month at 9% interest for the next 8 years. And essentially, I've now created passive income of $249 a month for the next 8 years. I don't have to deal with any renters, rehabs, renovations, or rodents. Because I don't have to deal with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act. We use land contracts, which essentially means we have no cost of foreclosure. We don't actually convey ownership or deed the property to the new owner until they pay off the promissory note. And all of this is automated with software. So we have our own proprietary software where essentially what used to take me 20 minutes in paperwork now takes 1 second. And I have a program called geekpay.io that automates the back end. So we automatically collect that $249 a month. It does the amortization for our borrower. It does the notifications. If the borrower's ACH or checking account bounces for whatever reason, we have a credit card on file as a backup. And so essentially we took a default rate of about 8% and lowered it to 4%. And then the game that we play is, can we create enough of these passive income notes where essentially it exceeds our fixed expenses, and now we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Now you're out of the rat race. That's the goal.
Right, exactly.
And we talk about that a lot on our podcast, right? Passive income exceeding monthly expenses. A lot of folks are listening to this are in the residential side of real estate, and you've kind of brought in a whole new way of thinking. You did mention 4 R's there that are no rodents.
No renters.
No renters.
The renters are the big one.
Yeah.
Right? No renters, no rehabs, no renovations, and no rodents.
Nice.
And is there anything else that you would say, like, how does this differentiate from that person that may be thinking about this from a residential real estate mindset? Anything different else that you can point to?
Well, I think the automation, the fact that it's scalable. So if you live in Indiana, you're pretty much sort of confined to that local area because of the time constraints. And also the risk of dollars involved when you're buying residential real estate. We're talking about, I mean, it depends on where you are on the monopoly board, but it's not going to be, let's say, a $5,000 piece of land or, a $2,500 piece of land. And so essentially, this reduces so much risk in so many other areas that you don't even think about. I mean, for example, I've been doing this full time since 2001, and the old adage in real estate is not a matter of if you're going to be sued, it's a matter of when. Well, knock on wood, this does not happen to me, because if someone doesn't like their property, I just refund them and I go to the next buyer. It's not a big deal. There's nothing to fight over on these sort of smaller, land deals. Now you can do bigger land deals as well. The model will still work, but the issue is, let's say you're going to buy an infill lot in San Francisco for $1 million and sell it for $2 million, right? Well, you're not going to get that infill lot 25 cents on the dollar. That person that owns that is going to find the biggest, baddest land broker in town and sell it for retail. So we're going out to areas that are more rural where, the brokers aren't going to deal with it. The owners don't know what to do with it. And essentially what was once an asset is now a liability for them. And we're solving a problem for them. The county's happy. We're getting a new person paying the taxes. And then we're creating value on the other side, giving somebody that maybe never thought they could actually own any kind of real estate this asset that they can afford.
Well, I think the beauty of what you said there is one, how you're marketing it to resell, and you're giving somebody probably an out to something they didn't want. I mean, I have a client right now I was on the phone with yesterday that was telling me they've basically inherited a property from her sister who passed 18 months ago. And one of the pieces of the property actually had a house on it, and they're having to go through all of this trying to figure out what's in it. And it really is not something they want. They just really want to dispose of it, but they just don't know the best way. And this is kind of an example. One of the things I did have a question on, you mentioned, was taxes. There was a tax problem from the beginning. Who pays that? In our example, we were using the $200. Do you pay it as the buyer, or do you give it to them, the $2,500, and then they have to go pay off the $200 bill that exists?
So typically, I will pay it, but I will wait to pay it. So I'll buy it. Now I owe the $200 as I own the property. Then I sell it. Now with that money that I just collected, I'll go ahead and pay the $200. So I got a free and clear property that I'm promising to give that buyer. Now, that being said, if it's getting close to auction, then I'm going to actually pay the taxes right away. And this is what we call a deed grabber situation, which is one of my better deals. So I had a client, and it was the day before, I want to say about 2,500 acres were going to auction in Nevada from this one seller. And he had about a $32,000 tax bill that he couldn't pay. So essentially, my client wasn't sophisticated enough to do this much due diligence in that short a period of time. So he called me. I said, okay, look, Tori, we're going to split this deal. I did the due diligence, and essentially what I did was I had the seller send me a video of him signing the deed and notarizing it, and then FedExing it to me, right? Because I'm not going to pay his taxes until I know the deed's in my name. So he does all that. I call the county. I tell him, look, here's a screenshot. I'm FedExing you the check. Don't have it go to auction. And then we got this property about 5 cents on the dollar. We each made $300,000 on that one deal.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, now, Mark, I have to play devil's advocate, right?
Sure.
I mean, all this sounds fantastic. Okay, well, I have this system. It's automated. I'm making $300,000 in my sleep. How does this go bad? Like, what goes wrong here?
So, well, let's rewind the tape, right? So let's go to 2008. Now, in 2008, I really didn't have a bad year. 2009, not so bad. 2010, 50% of my notes vanished because when it came to paying for their land note or feeding their family, I lost. Right? I'm going to lose that every time.
Right.
So essentially, from about 2010 to 2012, I had to rebuild that note portfolio. And it took some time. So, the economic circumstances, if we have sort of an apocalyptic 2008 type of recession, that can happen. I do believe that in a recession like the one that is coming up, we should probably see maybe a 10 to 15% default rate on our current portfolio. So, you just have to save for that. We use a profit first system for that. I would also say that if you mess up in due diligence, that could be a big, big problem. If you're buying, let's say, in a super fund area, that's why I only focus on areas in the Southwest, a little bit in Northwest, and Florida. I don't worry about Jersey or Pennsylvania, any super fund areas. So that sort of also eases my issues with.
But that could catch somebody if they were in those areas.
You could catch, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what? All right. So let's break down what you said there. So one of the things is that you're going to get the down payment back. That's the way you all deals that you do, whatever money you fronted up front, you're getting back.
Right. Now I'm either going to get it out on the down payment or within 6 months of that.
Okay.
Right.
And so then in the example where 2010, 2012 happened and people stopped paying, that's when you just basically took back over ownership of that property, or you maintain ownership, but no longer that person was out, right?
Right. So I had to resell those notes to a new buyer and reconfigure the pricing. And because I'd never gone through a cycle, it was sort of a lot of trial and error. And because I went through Parkinson's law of money personally, so the more money I made, the more money I spent, that was really hard to deal with. Yeah. And, I actually write about it in my book, Dirt Rich, plug away.
Dirt Rich. All right. Well, we'll have to read that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing there. So and by the way, what you talked about that you did with land, I've seen happen in the small town used car market, right? I mean, but go buy a car at auction for $2,000, turn around and sell it for $5,000, get them to put down $2,000 and finance the $3,000 at 25% interest. And then in 6 months, go repo it back from them because they quit paying you and just do it all over again. And that's in essence what you did. So yes, it took you a little bit of time, I'm assuming, to get the cash flow, but you actually benefited from the new sell at the high, at the full price plus interest, right?
No, absolutely. So, if we fast forward to 2018 and we rewind back to 2006 at the height of the market, my income is way higher today than it was even in 2006. But the difference is now I've been burnt. And so my personal living expenses, we created something called a budget. We have savings. We are prepared for the next recession, and I sleep way better at night.
Well, the people listening to this podcast, they save lots of money in cash value because they realize opportunities find cash, and the next recession, downturn, return to reality, whatever we all want to call it, is when money's going to be made. But also it smooths the gaps of when, like you have something like this that was creating an income stream, but then that income stream goes away because someone else's income goes away. You have something to fill those gaps in. All right. So
and where were you guys for me in 2006 and 2007? Right. So this is also a great lesson. Like, I didn't have a good mentor to even sort of, step back and look at like everything and be like, hey, you might want to think about this.
Yeah.
So
I was trying to sell you mutual funds and stocks and other things in 2006 and 2007 because, man, you were stupid if you were not putting money there. You were making tons of money. You know that. You were private equity at one point. You saw the returns in 99 and all that stuff.
Yeah. Those guys, yeah.
we know it's a farce, but that's where most of the people are being lured to put their money. And even right now, people are being told, you're so dumb. Why are you not putting money over here? I just earned 22% in my 401k last month, and I didn't even know what I was doing. It's like, exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, none of that money's going into their pocket because it's locked up and they can't touch it. What you're talking about is something that's liquid. You're creating income stream. And that's where wealth is built, is based upon what do we have tangible happening on a daily basis.
Right. So one of my clients is now over $50,000 a month in passive income, and he started 3 years ago. But how much money would you need to save to generate, let's say, at 3% or 5%, $50,000 a month? So that's basically what his net worth is at this point.
Right. Yeah, we've actually talked about on the show here the distribution method of certain assets. And to your point, if you're having to work off of a 3 to 5% multiple off of an accumulated balance, that's a lot of work.
You could have like 20 million in order to make that work.
Right. So exactly. So in 3 years, so how long would it take you to save $20 million? He did it in 3 years by working, really efficiently and focused, and doing it part-time actually, because this is not a 40-hour a week thing like flipping houses. I mean, I work 2 hours a week in my land investing business.
Well, I would assume, Mark, that having stories like that, and again, I know that that's not everybody's story and you're not telling everybody that they're going to get.
Like Rachel and Sean, they quit their jobs. They're at $5,000 a month passive. They don't have kids and they didn't have a big mortgage. They quit their jobs and that was enough for them. Now they're traveling the country and they're traveling the world.
But stories like that have to just pump you up, right? I mean, the gratitude that's created in hearing the stories that you just explained.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I can now die in peace. Like, it's fine. Like, I've had so many of these people, and I've changed so many lives, and it is so gratifying. And people ask me, like, well, why teach this stuff? You're just creating your own competition. And I have to tell you, well, I answered that question, but I have to tell you, like, nobody ever really said to me, "Hey, Mark, thanks for selling me that piece of land. It really changed my life." Right? Like, they're happy with the land. It didn't change their life. But like the Land Geek people, it's been incredible. And my favorite story is Mimi Schmidt she was a terrorist hunter, but she was managing like 150 people in
Wait a second. Did you say terrorist hunter?
She's a terrorist hunter. She worked for the Department of Defense, but It was a big, stressful job. And She's got 3 kids, and she quit her job last month based on working. It took her about 2.5 years to create enough passive income, and she had a big salary. So she hasn't completely replaced her salary, but she has enough to be able to quit her job. And those stories are so gratifying for me. So when I started teaching, my wife said, "Well, what are you doing here to create your own competition?" And so I said, "Well, that's a good point. Let's do some math." So we looked at how big is this market. There are 3,007 U.S. counties. There are billions of acres of land for sale. Billions. How much could I buy? How much could everyone buy? There's no private equity groups. There's no hedge funds. There's no big money in this niche. You, me, a million other people could go into this. We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow. And that has been the case ever since I've started. And this is the least sexy niche ever. You're not going to go on the DIY network or HGTV and see Flip This Land and me geeking out in front of my computer.
Yeah.
Right?
You mean you don't have your own like Amazon show yet or something like that?
No. Yeah.
We got to see if we can make that happen, dude. That would be awesome.
It's so funny. I actually got an email yesterday by this company. They said, "Oh, we love your book. We want to make it a Netflix video." I'm like people binge watch documentaries on Netflix and they're showing me all these things. And I'm like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I like staying a little below the radar.
Well, Mark, this is really cool. I know the people listening to you right now have gotten a ton out of this, but there's some like things that you can give them because at the end of the day, we're visual oriented. We need to see something. We need to be able to follow a process or a plan. Otherwise, it's just, information in, information out. What is it that you can give our listener right now to be able to take advantage of some of the things that you're talking about?
Right. So if they email support@thelandgeek.com, support@thelandgeek.com, and they put in the subject line Italian Stallion or Wealth Without Wall Street, or Joey and Russ, or Russ I like more than Joey, or Joey is better than Russ, or Tide Roll, or
well, we don't remember a second ago. One of your things about Land is that you don't like fixing toilets. We don't like to talk about the Tide here. We're Auburn guys.
Oh, all right. So Auburn, we'll send for free our $97 passive income launch kit course.
All right, sweet.
So passive income launch kit.
Right.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, so that again, that we're gonna put all this in the show notes, so that way you don't have to remember it. Just click on the episode, and we'll give all that stuff away. Mark, this is really cool. First episode that we've done with somebody literally walking on a treadmill in front of us. My impatience is now matched by someone walking while I'm talking. I like it.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll have to have you on again in the future, but thank you again for being on.
Russ, Joey, I really appreciate it. I'd be happy to come back.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand, so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.